This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
And I am not kidding when I say your Instagram, kudos to how you guys figured out the marketing. It like the link is on there like every day when I'm scrolling through stories.
Oh, really?
So kudos to you guys. You have figured it out.
Oh, thanks. I'm so glad to hear that because there's so many
You never know
things
how they're going to take off.
Yeah.
And Instagram seems to have figured it out better because you would see that with Facebook and you're like, okay, that barely lasted a day compared to what you said it would. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on here?
Yeah. I feel the same. So I feel like I'm just getting started. So I don't really have anything figured out, just taking it one day at a time.
I figured you had a story to tell since I'm a biohacker myself, and I was just like, Fit Forever was a wonderful read. So.
Oh, you finished it?
Yes.
Wow. Thanks for reading. Thanks for sharing that with me. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Tonight, guys, we got a wonderful author, wellness coach, and fitness instructor. We got Amber Dobecka here on the show tonight, here to talk about her book, Fit Forever, as well as share other tips and tricks.
Yeah.
There's so many great quotes in this book. One that really hit me was just because you're going for like a spiritual wellness doesn't mean it has to look or sound spiritual. There was another one that also hit me, which was 85% into the book. You really started talking more about physical science is not rocket science. And I'm like, see, that's the magic keyword, I think, because it's already a pain as it is to tell ourselves, I can't do this. And then to have to, you pretty much hit on rewording it multiple different ways. It's like, whatever I got to say to tell you, it's not impossible, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's so much more simple than we think it is. And I think the world we live in complicates it because there's money in complicating it, because everyone wants to sell you something or tell you it's this way and all the other ways are stupid and you're an idiot if you do it that way. So come do it my way. And unfortunately, we get stuck in this decision fatigue and this
bingo.
fear of not doing the right thing, so then we don't do anything at all.
Yeah, we freeze in our tracks, which is just as bad as letting the volcano, erupt on us. It's I live with my folks, and my father is always helping me out, and he's like, he joked with me like yesterday. He's like, yeah, I've just bought a new car because the old one flooded, and it's so funny. He's like, I just threw away about the billionth fear-mongered, ad saying sign up for this, because they use certain words like open now and it's borderline illegal. And it's like, well, no, I'm not going to open that.
It's so hard, even when we are aware that we're being sold, or we're aware that this is an ad and I'm not going to fall for it. I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, I'm like, but I want to do it so bad.
Morbidly curious, even though it's the same.
Yes. And we're hopeful, right? Like I think maybe some of us more than others, we see the potential in something and we want to trust that it's going to work because we're so hungry for the answer. And we're so hungry for whatever it is that we're being told we could possibly get. And therefore we're willing to just give something a chance, even though we know it's risky.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
It's too good to be true. And yet we're still curious. And, I actually did 6, therapy sessions last year, but that was a big breakthrough, because usually first, that goes back to your first point. First, we hide behind the money excuse. Oh, it's going to be, $50, $80 per session, yada, yada. And then I was like, I don't need help, which is already a lie. Yes, you got to talk about something. And if family members or friends are driving you crazy, talk about it with some licensed person who's already going to
Mhm.
repeat it back to you and have it make better sense. And I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
from Zoom, I have, I've already fought insomnia and a bunch of other stuff. Just go for it. Just try it out.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful because basically one thing that all of them use, and this plays into everything, mental health, fitness, and everything, assertive communication.
Yeah. That's
I don't, I
good.
don't, I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, I think I can follow what you're saying, at least.
Uh, you give everyone a win, basically. So, hey, I can't meet you at the gym this Wednesday. Hey, but I can do it next Wednesday. Or hey, I can help you with the wedding, but I can't be the best man or something like that. Just
Yeah.
give you half a
Okay.
win
Yes. Very.
instead of a
That's
white
good.
lie, instead of a half truth, uh, or just an excuse saying no, without a reason.
Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah. Being unloving or
yeah,
unkind. Yeah.
I can't, uh, or like, I can do this, but I can't do that, or like, hey, I know you want me to eat at this restaurant with you. I don't eat that kind of food anymore. How about we try this one? Hey, uh, I don't have time to, go to that one contest you're at, but I can babysit your pets this coming,
Yeah.
something.
That's very good. I definitely, I mean, I'll take that point home with me because I think it's something we can always practice with better, more clear boundaries in the way that
Very
we
clear.
communicate. Yeah,
Instead
exactly. You don't have
of,
to lie. You
yeah,
don't have to explain your no necessarily, but just clearly communicate. I got stuck always explaining my no because that was part of my people pleasing nature, and I was so
you hit
afraid of
on it a
disappointing
bunch.
somebody. Yeah, I do talk
But
about that quite
but
a
we
bit.
all relate. That's why I think this is such a relatable book. Is just having to explain the frustrations and then having to explain, hey, I'm not angry, but I'm still trying to get through to you, and I don't feel like you're. And this is where it gets even harder. Is like, well, I don't want to be damned if I do, damned if I don't. But at the same time, like, I need to let you know I am trying on my end.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
So uh, you built up your template on how to organize all your tips and tricks. It's very digestible, and you gotten rid of all the common uh, uninformed or miss and all that. But so uh, why do you think? I'll reword this a bit. Well, why do you think you're able to structure this advice for others?
Um, well, a lot of it is me sharing, number one, from my past experience and things that I've tried and failed at or tried and learned from. I've always tried to take the perspective of whatever I do. I want to learn from something. And I think that that is the implementation of growth, being able to grow
Yes.
from something. My background in history, which I share quite a bit about in my book, affords me a lot of failure. And, if
Yeah.
when you fail at something or when something doesn't work out the way that you planned, and just from sheer disappointment, even things that are not necessarily your fault, you have two options. You can sit in that pain or you can grow from it. And so
Yes.
I will say that that's one thing that I've always tried to do is what can I learn from this? How can I improve? Um, a side note, if your listeners are interested in like self-development things, there's this test called it's a strengths finders test. It's like the Clifton, I'll have to find out the exact name, but it's like the Clifton strengths finders test. And it's really good. So it showed me when I took it, just like a couple years ago, I took it in a leadership class. It showed me my number one strength is improvement and input. And
Nice.
at first I was like, what does that even mean? Like that kind of caught me off guard. But I realized that it means that I love gathering information, whether that's gathering information from my mistakes or things that disappoint me, like figuring out what I can do to improve and not do that again. Unfortunately, in the dysfunctional way of having that nature or that personality, that makes me a perfectionist, and I'm always trying to do better, and therefore I never celebrate and I'm never content with just being wherever I'm at. So I think learning from that, all of those experiences over years and a little bit of wisdom coming from that, obviously a lot of Jesus in my life, a lot of healing
Yes.
going on in my spiritual life, and getting closer to God and understanding that I was never meant to be perfect. I was never meant to have it all figured out, and that God is not thrown off by my failures. In fact, he expects it. And so why do I expect myself to not fail, or to not mess up? And so as I had these revelations over years, I just felt so strongly about sharing these stories with people, because I mean, what is the purpose of me getting better if I'm not helping others get better?
Yeah.
And of course, as I was practicing this in my career, as a fitness instructor, we can help. As fitness instructors, we can help people become physically better. But I was learning over years of trying to help people transform physically that there was such a cap, that they could really only transform physically as much as they were willing to transform mentally, spiritually, emotionally.
Mm.
And until we addressed those issues, they were never going to succeed, because the thing is there's an abundance of information out there about meal plans and workout plans. And you can go on Pinterest or Instagram and find
Yeah.
a perfect cookie cutter thing, plan, and you could try to follow it. But if it was that easy, everybody would be super fit and nobody would have any
Mm-hmm.
issues. The
Yep.
problem is our mind gets in the way, our habits, our lifestyle, our relationships, are the way that we think about ourselves and the way that we think about other people. So all of those things have to be addressed if we want to have any sort of progress physically, which is usually where that's what people think they want, right? They think they
Right.
want to lose weight, or they think they want to look better or appear better, or even, I mean, even a step deeper is, a lot of people are like, well, I want to feel better. I want to feel more energetic. I don't want to feel sick anymore. I want to get off these medications. And that's closer to it, but it's deeper than that. I want to be able to walk in a room and not immediately compare myself to everyone else, not immediately find the flaws in everybody else and see where I size up or I size down. And I don't want to be thinking about myself. I want to be able
Bingo.
to serve other people. I want to be able to meet that person's needs and compliment this person and celebrate that person's wins without thinking about how it affects me. And the only way we can arrive at that point is being confident enough in who we are that we're not thinking about ourselves so much.
I
Um,
That is
yeah,
golden right there. Yeah, because I do this when I find a gift. I try to find a good deal, and I try to find it earlier, and even go the extra mile to do something that no one else even does in today's world. Write a letter and all that. My sister loves
yeah,
to
yeah,
mix in her love of arts and crafts, and uh, work it into sewing and making original clothing for other friends of
yeah,
hers. But yeah, no, that is so true. How and you hit on it in the book a lot, as like the selfless journey while still finding new things each year, and it
yeah. I mean, you're
does.
training yourself, so
All
it is
right.
about yourself, right?
And it seems like each time you read a poll, there's people who have been to college or something, assume, hey, I've learned it all, I don't have to keep growing. And it's like, oh, there's always something. you know
Yeah,
your
yeah,
professors
for
don't
sure.
know everything. They know a good chunk of what your major might be, but that's not.
Yeah, I think the point that you think that you know it all, or even you might not admit that in using those words, but you might think that you've
However we
arrived,
want
or
to word
even,
it, yeah,
yeah, like
just
this is as
I'm
good as it
halting.
gets. Even,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, even if you were to say, this is as good as it gets, then this is my life. This, or
It's
even a
not
lot of the times
improving
we'll
from
hear it, it's
here.
like, this is just who I am. This, even like from a spiritual side,
Ugh.
even people in the church are like, this is how God made me, deal with it. And no,
Yeah.
like, we are made to change and made to adapt and develop and keep on becoming. Like, we're supposed to keep on developing and keep on becoming. And I think, like, that's what has me personally hooked on fitness, is because there's constantly something just beyond my reach, like a skill or for me, lifting, once you hit this weight, then it's like, okay, now I need to get to this weight. There's always
Yes.
something, there's always ways to improve. And,
Mm.
when I start to think those ways in physical fitness, I have to learn how to translate that into all the other areas of my life. And that's what keeps you moving forward and keeps that beneficial and keeps me becoming not just a better athlete, not just a better fitness trainer, but a better person.
Lovely. I love that. Um, what myth do you feel like you've had to kind of dispel the most? Because it, like you say, sometimes it's a mixture of people who've been fed bad information versus they mean no harm, but they're they're still kind of expecting kind of like a magic trick and it's all good, or a few sessions and they move on,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I think one of the first things that comes to mind is um, it kind of ties into at the very beginning of our conversation we talked about like the narrative that we tell ourselves. I think a lot of it, people are afraid to be honest with themselves, and so they paint this picture of of who they are, and it's so different from the reality. For example, and I'm going to give some background to this, but I get a lot of inquiries from people who want to work with me one on one with coaching. And I ask very detailed questions because the more I know about their current state of fitness and their lifestyle, the better I can be able to say, okay, this is what we should do moving forward and yada, yada.
Hmm.
Well, a lot of the times people will tell me that, they say it's like, I'm 5'2", I'm 200 plus pounds, I'm a woman, and all I eat is chicken and broccoli. And I'm like, and I work out 5 times a week. And I'm like, something is not right. you know, if that's the truth, then you shouldn't weigh that much, or that like you shouldn't be in need of fitness and nutrition counseling or coaching here if
Hmm.
what you're telling me is the reality. And, and of course that's the surface level. So I think the myth is we have gotten so used to presenting ourselves in a light, and I think a lot of it has to do with being on social media,
Yep.
um, having this virtual representation of ourselves, this life that we present to others. And unfortunately, it's trained us to not think intrinsically, to not think about what we're thinking about, to not ask ourselves those hard questions of, am I following through with what I said? Am I being
Hmm.
truthful with what I say I want? Because if I say I want to be fit, or if I want to have these 3 goals met, am I being truthful with saying that I'm willing to do X, Y, and Z?
Right.
Um, so I don't know if that constitutes as a myth, but I would say that that is a problem, and like this,
It puts a limit, I guess, on
yeah, it
maybe
definitely puts a limit
making
on how far people can go until you're willing to be honest with yourself. Um, and if you're working with a coach, which I think if you're willing to work with a coach, then you've taken the first step forward.
you
But you
already
got to be honest with
honor
your person.
what they have to say,
Yeah.
especially if you're there every day and you're on time. So that's already a good start.
Yes.
Let's just say for whatever's the best scenario. And uh, one thing I often hear, and this is not to villainize anyone or anything, uh, it, but it's kind of goes back into kind of nervousness and everything. We will hear a few different other excuses like, "Oh, I'm just an average Joe. I can't do this." Like, well, what do you want to do? Let's flip it around. Uh,
Yeah.
have you ever had to kind of just say, "Okay, like think of this as your cutoff point. How far are you willing to go?" Like, I even look at it as, I hate to bring money into this, but like, let's say I'm on eBay. How high am I willing to bid? Okay, no more than 50. So I'm gonna get this kind of product. This is what I think it's worth.
Right.
And
Hmm.
it seems like a lot of people don't put a number on something. They just kind of go, well, you know, your guess is as good
Yeah.
as mine.
No, I think that is a really good point. I think you can see me better. I think people are unwilling to even talk about the cost that it's going to take to
Yes,
be fit.
it's uncomfortable.
I think yeah, again, I hate to keep talking about social media as a problem because I'm on there a lot and I think it's a solution in so many ways and there are so many benefits to it,
Right?
but there are some problems and there are some cons to it. And one of them being, I think that people get on there and see people saying, it's so easy. All you got to do is do this and this and this. And then people try whatever it is and they fail and they're
Yep.
disappointed and they think, well, what's wrong with me? I must be a failure because it wasn't easy and they told me it was going to be easy. They said if all I did was this, this, and this, that I would be successful. And then it's not that easy and
That's
it's
what I
not
look for in a
instantaneous.
review.
Yes.
It's like, okay, did they do their homework, or are they cutting some corners, or they only tried out the trial? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I would do that on Rate My Professor. I would look at the reviews of who had put in the time and effort, and which was the common trend. Okay, the study materials don't have anything to do with the exam. Okay, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Versus this person was saying, I don't like the person's face. Well, that has nothing to do with.
Nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I'm sorry you don't like their face, and you can't be constructive enough to say what's wrong with the class.
Yeah.
And of course, every other professor hated it because they're like, "Oh, it's hearsay." I'm like, "Well, there's a reason the site exists. It's people who want to share certain professors that are active and see if they recommend their class or not." But I mean, you could go to the back of Amazon reviews. Which ones are a corporate one, 5 stars, not much detail, versus one that's like a 3 or 4 out of 5, giving some detail. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
it it seems like, but to your earlier point, it does seem like many like to just go yes or no. You know, like you got to pick a team, and it's like, well, sometimes there's the in between. You know, and we get that even with commitment. Like, uh,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you want to have charity run, you know, and you're looking for volunteers. There at this point, there's yes and there's everything else. You know, if you get a
Yeah.
maybe, that's still not a yes. You know,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think we have one of the myths is that people can people can become fit and that's what I'm using because that's the realm in the industry that I'm in, but or people can become successful and it's not going to cost them anything. I think that's the biggest myth that I deal with and probably is most relatable
mm,
to anyone in any industry is that I can get what I want for nothing.
I
And
love that is
you know
very
what I
true.
mean?
Yeah, it
And
won't cost me
it
much.
just never works, at least not in my experience. That's never, in fact, it's going to cost you everything, like
Hmm.
literally everything. And, we live in a world once again that glamorizes and defines success with all the things and, even certain amount of followers on social media. And you have these, paid partnerships and things like that. Outside of just having things and big houses and cars.
Yes, the
It's
looks. Yeah.
notoriety. It's the clout. Um, when I find myself getting caught, because we're all human and we all start to fall into that trap of measuring your success based on the wrong standards, I try to redefine what I'm after. And I discover that when I pursue significance and influence and impact over what I would describe as success,
Hmm.
then I can usually see that I'm making a difference in a lot of ways and that I'm making progress in the ways that I want to make, more so than if I just look at, well, was I successful today? Like, well,
Yes.
actually, was I
Oh man.
significant? Did I have significant conversation with somebody? Was I able to have influence over anyone? Even at the end of the day, for me, it might even just be me and my 3 little kids. Like, I can usually find some way that I had some influence, had some significance over them. And
Yes.
yeah, if I answer that question, then I'm able to continue building momentum in growth and through progress and in development. And I don't get stuck in this cycle of shame and feeling like I'm not even making a difference. So what does it matter? I'm just going to give up.
It's so easy to want to too. I mean, I've had a Zoom chat where I wasn't ready to moderate and the panelists were kind of arguing with each other, and I just had to I was like, this is too much trouble than it's worth, because it was like the third time it had exploded in my face, all this
Oh
unwelcome,
no.
and so I had to say, okay, I'm just gonna send out some, just like a paragraph and email. Don't treat anyone as hostile. Just say, hey guys, it's not easy editing a bunch of arguments.
No, yeah.
I don't think anyone wants to hear this. Don't get me wrong, there's someone out there, but it's probably not us. Just
Yeah.
especially if the
In the
name of the episode.
future,
Yeah.
you will be muted.
You're right. I could have even worded it that way. I could have said, hey, you will be thrown out next time. But I said, I'm just gonna say, well, how about we try something different? And the ones who got it got it. The others who kind of were used to just kind of joking around or going too far, eventually they went somewhere else. So I was like, okay, cool. No one got hurt.
Yeah,
But
that's good.
but no, that is so true. In fact, we can kind of go a step further. Instead of put a number on it, put a limit on it.
Yeah.
And it does seem like, for all the excuses we run into, for all the conflict that we try to avoid, it's just like, well, instead of just having shields up all the time, why not just uh, find 5 different alternate roads? Uh, like, in order to fight my insomnia now, I always have a workout plan figured out. It's like, okay, the gym's not open, so today I'm gonna mow the lawn instead. That's a
Yeah,
double
that's
win.
great. Yeah, for sure.
But that took 2 years to figure that out, and
Hmm.
trial and error, and I'm glad I did. But
Yeah.
most people would have said, "Oh, forget it." It's just like, well, no,
Yeah,
hold on,
for sure.
you're
Yeah,
close. It's
that's a
gonna,
perfect example of learning how to okay, we want to work out because not only do we want to, strengthen our bodies, but we want to do something productive.
yes,
And so being able to find a way that you can be productive
hmm
and dual ways because it's still exercise, um, and then getting something done. I think that's great. And the fact that you had to, you said it took you trial and error, it took you years to figure
yeah,
out that, like, to even get to the point where you can make that decision. But now you're so much more relatable for somebody who you might meet. And now you have a way to be like, you have empathy for that person because you've been there. And you also can represent hope for that person because they
yes,
say, they see you and you've been there, but now you're not there. And they're like, okay, it can happen.
absolutely. Whenever I'm nearby the store, I'll send a text and tell people, "Hey, do you want this or that? They got a good deal on this." And people will say, "Oh, it's your money. You don't have to do that." I'm like, "Well, you're not going to go to the store anytime soon. I'm happy to help out." But
I
it,
love it.
I think we're also I just repeated that. We're still, we kind of, much like we have barriers put up that, again, they don't mean any harm, but it's easy to be reluctant. I think it's also, we kind of do this like every Christmas. Oh, you don't have to get me anything.
Yeah.
It's like,
Hmm.
well, why do you say that? Is it because you're used to getting something you have no use for, or is it because you're afraid, they're overspending or something? It could be a bit of both, but um,
Yeah. That is a huge indicator that something is going on. So that's something I struggled with for a good while, was being able to receive help, receive gifts without the constant nagging feeling that
yes,
I was unworthy of it.
it's
So
wild how it's always in the form of a nag. Like, whether it's
yeah.
something we're telling ourselves, like, we're not worthy of this, or you don't have to
Hmm.
do that, you're overthinking it. I would do the whole,
Yes.
oh, and sometimes it's easy to be, we can be a little more hostile to ourselves. We can do the whole, oh, you idiot. It's like, well, hold on, we don't have to name call ourselves. That's only
Yes.
furthering our frustration.
Yes. So something that was transformative for me in this, so almost a year exactly ago, like next week will be a year exactly ago, my little girl, she was 1 at the time. She had a stroke,
Mm,
and which is like very rare.
Yikes.
we ended up being in the hospital for almost 4 months, and she was in intensive therapy. It was a huge traumatic experience for our whole family. But so there's a lot of healing and stuff and growth that took place through that experience. But one of the things that I can say changed in me was the ability to receive help. I was so desperate. We were stuck in the hospital. I have two other kids. So I have three kids total. And my other two kids, my husband and I would have to switch and take turns. One of us staying at the hospital with our daughter, and the other one's taking care of our other two kids. And of course it was like the beginning of school last year, and it was my other one of my son's first day at school, and we could not get our crap together. And had it not been for friends and family that came alongside and blessed us with meals and helping like carpool our kids and stuff, and I was so overwhelmed with gratitude. It was like I could never, the thought of it made me feel like I could never repay these people. Like this is too much. I could never. And it made me realize that in the past, anytime somebody was to do something nice for me, it's almost like I was keeping score. Like I was like, okay, now you owe them. You need to go do something nice for them. And honestly, that's not me expressing gratitude really. Like expressing that type of gratitude is, I will never be able to repay you. And I am so thankful that you are blessing me this way. Like it was just a new level of,
instead of I owe you or we're square, it's
yeah, exactly. Like,
you're the person.
Amber, you
you're
can't
the man.
do that. Like, yeah, like you can't keep up with this extreme generosity that you are experiencing. You'll never be able to meet that standard because we had people praying for us that we don't even know, like sweet messages, sweet gifts. And I still, like, I don't have the words to describe the level of gratitude that I felt and that I still feel to this day.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I do feel like, again, like that is another avenue where everyone likes to go, oh, I'm admitting defeat. Is like, well, no, we're being realistic here.
Yeah.
I've helped out
Yeah.
friends who weren't taking advantage of me, who are like, hey, I really need help with the rent. And so I was helping them move out. I was helping them. And I just flat out said, you don't owe me a quarter. You don't owe me anything.
Yes.
You're making as much as you're spending. Just, you don't owe me anything.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, because it's a gift to the person giving. When you're generous, I think we can all testify to that it feels good to be able to deposit goodness to others,
right?
without feeling like they're gonna just give it right back.
Absolutely. It's not the same as, hey, I'm paying for loyalty. It's like, no, not at all. This is not, no holds barred. This is just, you were in a bind, you needed help,
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, would you say, yeah, we mentioned money a lot. Would you say people sometimes don't know how to budget certain courses, like how much they're willing to spend versus how much they're willing to pay for certain instruction on fitness?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I think people, there's a lot of competition in fitness.
Yes,
Like with
unfortunately.
what I do, I try to, at least that's my intention, is that I provide elements of accountability, elements of customization, personalization that you're not going to get by just joining a gym for $25 a month. And so I think people are maybe sometimes thrown off by that, the idea like, well, why would I hire you,
Yes.
like when I could just go do this? And and if somebody mentions that to me, for example, in an inquiry or some sort of strategy session that I have with them, I know that they're just not ready to work with me. They're not my ideal client, because my ideal client is hungry for change. They understand that I've been there, done that. I've tried it. I tried to do it on my own, and I've been unsuccessful before. And I'm ready to do whatever you say. Not in the sense that I'm going to just be authoritative, but basically they are teachable and humble enough
Yes.
I think a lot of times people, once again, are unwilling to admit that they don't know everything. And really down deep, I think they're just fearful of being screwed over or scammed. And
Yes.
probably because they have been before.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast wrecks and booty debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out. There's nothing wrong with asking the 5 magic questions, but like you say, sometimes it can be a little in your face, like, whoa, okay.
Yes. I try to make it like doable for people. I offer installments and everything. And I understand it is an investment, but I want to be able to deliver on that investment. And I will be capped as a coach if the person is not willing to take the investment and make the investment to themselves. Cause I can tell them till I'm blue in the face to do whatever they're supposed to do. But if they don't do it, it's not gonna work, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's almost, would you say it's almost kind of like being a professor is like, okay, I'm going to spend more time on the one who did the extra credit versus, you know, or asked me 5 questions versus they're always in the back disinterested in, you know?
Very true. That's that's exactly how it is. I mean, the person who wants to learn, I want to work with that person. The person who's hungry for information, the person who's hungry for feedback, I even use that sometimes. Like I would say it's not as intentional. It wasn't as intentional in the beginning as I see it now happening in my settings or like my process. So my process has like, I need you to watch this video and then respond to these questions.
Nice.
And if people can't even watch the dadgum video and respond to the questions, well, half of this is only going to work if we're communicating, you know, it's like, this isn't going to work if you don't respond to the questions, because how are we supposed to have a conversation? How am I supposed to help keep you accountable? You know? And I will say that that's the hardest part about working with people virtually or online only. When I see you at a personal training session or I see you in a class that I'm teaching, it's a lot easier to establish that rapport and that relationship with that person. But I mean, that is a limiter.
Speaking of which, what do you think, if you were to just break this down right now, just what are 3 things we should just always eliminate when beginning any kind of workout session?
Okay. Are you talking like practically, like foods to eliminate or like mindset?
Definitely more of a mindset. Like, let's just say something that affects any workout session. It's a little bit on the spot. I know.
That's okay. Number 1, I would say get rid of the perfectionism standard. Don't be a perfectionist. Nobody is perfect. And although that's said over and over again, we've all heard of that saying and that phrase, and we know that. We don't believe that a lot of the times. I will say I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say it's me, because a lot of the times I believe that I can be perfect. And then when I'm not, I'm disappointed. So, not that you need to have a very low self image, but don't expect yourself to be perfect. Then, therefore, when you do have these successes, you can actually celebrate. So I'd say the second one would be, don't compare yourself to others.
Yes.
Eliminate this need to compare yourself to anyone around you, which is so hard to break. It's a daily struggle. I don't know if it's, I mean, surely it's for all of us, men and women, but I think women especially, like, for whatever reason, we size each other up all day, every day, and it's just ridiculous. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so getting around people who are true, I call them true blue friends, like people who are going to be your friends, who are going to tell you the truth, who you can have deep conversations with and share these vulnerabilities, even being able to say, like, I struggle with comparing myself to you and to that girl over there, or this girl on Instagram or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Even being able to admit it to somebody is such a good step forward. But getting rid of this idea that you need to compare yourself to anyone, because here's the thing, comparison either inflates your self-image, where you go, I'm better than her, or I'm better than them,
Yes.
or it does the opposite, and you go, she's better than me and I suck and I'm fat and ugly and all these things, or whatever. It's like, it does no
Mm-hmm.
good. And I would say there's probably more, but the next thing, so the third thing would be, don't compare yourself to a former version of you. And I had to learn this in different seasons of my life, because so I come from a bodybuilding background. So I did bodybuilding competitions, and I mean, where I was maintaining like 3 to 6% body fat, and it was ridiculous. And actually, I wasn't very healthy at all, because nobody's really that healthy when you are a woman at that low body fat percentage. But a lot of the time, then I had 3 babies. So then not only has it been 10 years after that, but 3 babies on top of that, my body is different. And so instead of comparing myself to who I was back then as like this ultimate standard of fitness, I have to like almost have amnesia, like voluntarily forget what I used to think fitness looked like, and
Yes.
what I used to think fitness success looked like, and redefine what that means to me. Am I stronger? Checking your physical performance. Am I able to perform at things? Am I improving certain movements? Or if I'm running, just endurance and distances, do I feel better? Do my clothes fit well? Do I like the way I look in pictures? Things like that. And again, if you're going to have yes to all those questions, then you
Yeah.
also have to address that fitness. And I'm going to add a bonus one to this, but like the other mindset I would say you have to eliminate is that success in fitness is only aesthetic. And has got to be out there, because the only success in fitness that you have is actually doesn't make you a better human being. So one day your body is going to fail and die and nobody's going to remember how good your butt looked or how much you could bench press. They're going to remember how you made them feel, and the influence that you had beyond your fitness capacity.
Bingo. I have some scientists in my family, and they were all like, "Hey, even if you did live to the official age, it's
Yeah.
more your your cells eventually will develop some kind of cancer, just because the body has a limit. We're just
Yeah.
about living the best possible life instead of you know eating stuff that we know isn't great, but we keep eating it anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
but that is also what I really adored when I went to your website, and it's like, wow, you're taking away the personal image, but you're really hitting home on that. It's like, okay, if this is the part of the workout that you're going for, we can work on this versus, uh, you know, other day to day stuff you can sneak in. I take it you've heard of high intensity training,
Yes.
and it's such a time saver, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, absolutely it is.
Especially in the holidays where you're like, I need to get a workout
Yeah.
in before we sit down for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah, very true.
I'm
No, thank
thankful
you for
that I can still
noticing
work.
that about. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
and
just going to say thank you for noticing that about my content because I try really hard to use that. That is what I'm most passionate about. Obviously I love working out, but beyond that, I want my workouts to mean more than just some good information. Hey,
become more
do this
work.
workout. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Lovely. Um, so when making a website like this, what tips would you have on where people need to spend more time on? Uh, should they spend more time on building the site versus making sure the message is crystal clear?
Um,
It's a bit of both, but like, what do you think is
yeah,
a little more?
I would say definitely. Well, it depends on what you want to do, right? Like
Yeah.
if you are wanting to be a coach, then I would probably have a different answer versus somebody who just wants to be big on social media
Yeah, that's
or,
true.
just the influencer
Hmm.
and then somebody who, you just want to write like, cause I'm also I'm an author. So for me, it's been difficult because I've done little bits of work in presenting myself and you only have X amount of energy and time. And so I feel like sometimes I'll pour a lot of my energy into my social media and that takes away from my energy in coaching the clients I have. And then that takes away the energy from promoting my book or even writing other content. And so I would say that probably, and I'm not the technology and digital creation expert at all, but my experience and my speculation is that the website is less important than the conversation platforms you have. So, however, you can get in front of people. And again, I don't know if this is a fact, but I feel like less and less people are actually going to people's websites
I've
and they're
noticed that a
more
bit
so,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
connecting with people either on social media or, I mean, honestly, yeah, it's like direct messaging. And now, I mean, social media
Instagram
has all the
videos.
link
Yeah.
trees. Like you can just link
Yes.
things directly from there, even YouTube.
If you
Um,
click on any of the five, it's a win, but
yes. I mean,
it's a
yeah,
lose if they don't get it or don't
if they
click.
don't get it. Yeah, I mean, I have my website on my social media and I don't know. I spent a lot of time trying to develop and I think it looks good. I paid somebody to help me. I started making my website and then realized I do not have the mental capacity to learn all this. So I hired somebody to
Yes.
finish it and I'm so thankful that I did because I think it works and looks well and professional. But I'm almost like,
You put a limit
I,
on
well, yeah, I probably don't
it.
need it. I mean, I like it because people can clearly see everything that I offer. But I don't need it
There's
for
five
an
different
e-commerce
speeches on
platform.
it if they want
Yeah.
to, you know.
Yeah. You can learn a lot about me.
It'll definitely make it easier for if someone books you at a conference, is like they can already copy and
Yes.
paste the parts they like.
Yeah,
That's your intro.
that's true. And part of it, and then this is me seeing the value in the process always, even if I look back in retrospect and I go, I probably shouldn't have done that. I can always value it because even as I was building that website, having to think about, okay, what do I do? How do I help people? And having to write it down and write it concisely. And is it digestible for people? Like, will they understand it? And so there's value in that because then you're having to, once again, decide who you want to be,
Hmm.
um, and re-implement and keep hammering away at who you are. And that just defines everything.
I feel like that's also kind of what it is people don't know how to define what they want.
Hmm.
You do. It seems like
No, but that's huge. That's exactly it. People don't know
a lot
what
of
they want.
outlining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't know what they want because they don't know who they are. Um,
Mhm.
and I think they've been so used to being told what they should want and who they think they should be because the world tells us. And I mean, if you've read my book, you know, like that's it for me is I have to know who I am before so that I don't allow the world to tell me who I am because otherwise
Yes.
I'll start believing whatever the world's telling me.
Perfect. Yeah. Don't kind of even goes back to the social media thing. Be on there when you need to be, when you don't need to be. Good night, world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, this has been a delight. This has been just nothing but positivity. But even then, I was expecting positivity, but like we went even beyond the thick of it because,
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
well, and much like positivity costs nothing, a lot of people are kind of just afraid to kind of end it on a positive note. It's like, well, we're not saying lie to yourselves, but like any bit of progress you made, that's a good day,
Yes. Yes. You have to learn how to spin things. Um,
Yes,
and again, yeah, it's not about lying to yourself. You have to,
you're doing good. No.
yeah.
What that should come out as you're closer to the end of the tunnel,
Yeah. Actually, you failed miserably and don't ever do that again, but we
Yeah,
can
there you
learn
go.
about that. We can learn from that.
You won't be
And now,
repeating this day. That's a win.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And and I guess just back to the whole deal of, fitness is there to just help you just do better in your world. Sure, it's annoying to
Hmm.
have to work it in with all the other stuff you got scheduled, whatever that might be, renewing your driver's license, having a conference, you know,
Hmm.
working your
Yeah.
second job. But in the end, you're glad you're doing it, because
Yeah.
just
I
take
mean,
the
I think
stress
it's
off.
like if you want to be excellent, which I think we were designed and we were created by God to be excellent. Like it doesn't matter. You can have somebody say, I don't really care. I'm happy with who I am or I'm content with my life. But I don't believe people when they say that.
Yeah.
Was, I believe everybody has something in them that wants to be significant. And in order to be significant, you have to pursue excellence. And in order to pursue excellence, you have to train yourself. Like it takes practice. We're born like completely dependent and miserable little beings that depend on our mommies for everything and on somebody else to take care of us. And we have to just like, I have to train my kids on how to be healthy adults. I have to train myself. That training doesn't end with when they become adults. They have to therefore take on that role of now they're training themselves on how to be responsible, on how to be selfless and not selfish, which is what comes natural.
Yeah. I
But
don't feel
to
like
now
it.
think of
Well,
others. Yeah,
why don't you feel like it? Yeah.
exactly. You have to train yourself to be generous instead of stingy. And we all have things that we have to work harder at based on our environment when we were little, our current jobs, our personalities. Like there are things like my husband is just naturally very generous. Like he doesn't really even, I mean, I shouldn't say he doesn't worry about money, but it doesn't stress him out. Like when I think it should be stressing him out, it doesn't. But for me, it does. And that's partly because of my personality and partly because of my history growing up. I always, like, we were told we never had enough. So I just
Yeah.
like naturally stressed
Don't
out over those
expect
things.
much if you want to
Yeah.
avert
Hmm.
disappointment. And the book does a good job of
Yeah.
saying, don't resort to any kind of disappointment. Just resort to again, just progress every day. And I mean,
Yeah.
I've had to do this with so many things. Like, hey, I don't use this kind of insurance. How about I try this insurance? Hey, I'm
Hmm.
not doing much at this after school program or at this church. Maybe I should try this group instead. Might be a better
Yeah.
experience. Instead of
Yes.
just, well, I'm gonna just stop going. I don't need it in my life anymore. It's like,
Yes.
well, and then months go by. I kind of need that back.
Yes. Yeah. And that comes back to eliminating that perfectionistic mindset because you're not trying to be perfect. You're just trying to be a little bit better. Like there's a mantra that I speak to myself when I'm dying in my workouts, and in particular, like on my long runs. And there's always a point in my run where I'm like, oh, just be done. And like, it's like, just
Without
stop,
fail.
just walk.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just think to myself, just a little more, just a little more,
Little
a little more. And it's like, instead of thinking to myself, no, you have to actually do like 3 more miles because you're stupid and you ran off and now the only way to get home is 3 more, like whatever. I just think, okay, just make it to that tree. Okay, now you've made it to that tree. Okay, just make it to that light. And it's like, just take it in little pieces and just say just a little bit more instead of thinking you have all this road to go. Just have a little bit more.
Bingo. Bingo. And yes, it's all easier said than done, but at the same time, it isn't, if that's also makes sense. Like, just.
Yeah. And it's okay that it isn't. It's okay that it's hard. It doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yes. Again, no, don't villainize it. Don't say it's impossible. And at the same time, like, we're doing more than just saying, hey man, I can do this. It's also, whatever will make those minutes go by faster, just man. Well, once again, just lovely chat, very engaging. Okay, for air date, how about we go for 3rd week of September? Does that sound good?
Yeah, whatever you say.
Original authors week.
Yeah, okay, cool.
We're a variety show, so we have a bit of stuff for everybody, but
yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you reaching out to me and encouraging me.
Thanks again for Instagram. Like, it was on fire.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I should talk to this person.
Oh, thank you.
Lovely. And, again, like, with any of these chats, anyone who just wants to be, like, engaged with this, please, engage,
Yeah.
with anyone. Let them know what you're thinking. My brother teaches for the Arizona Brewers, and he has kind of a similar deal where he has to help them develop their own formula in between game time versus personal life. And he gets plenty of the ones and that don't really have a game plan. And so he's like, well, do you want to develop a game plan?
Yeah.
But he didn't find that overnight. Like, he used to teach for the Texas Rangers. And long story short, that team was like, we no longer want your expertise. We got a different staff.
Wow.
The person who hired you is no longer working here, so the entire staff has to go. Nothing personal. And that hurt because he thought, okay, but then that made him go, I need to spend less time getting comfortable and more time working on my brand, what I can offer the other team who does want me. And so really what it was a few weeks of crying and then figuring it out. I'm like, I'm impressed.
There you go. Yeah, that's awesome. What a cool deal.
Yeah. And other people would have been like, I need to get out of this place while I'm still ahead. And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And stop waiting for a reason to exist.
Yeah. Well, do you need anything else from me, or are you just gonna reach out when it's edited and stuff?
So we got all the links. We got a cool promo image and everything. I think we're good to go on this end. But thank you. Thanks a million, and thank you for your questions and setting this all up.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thanks, Cam.
Absolutely, Ms. Dobecka. And once again, you have a wonderful rest of the year. And here's to positivity.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay,
endless
have a
positivity.
Good night. Yeah.
Right. Be safe out there.
Thank you.
Have a blessed
Bye.
night. Right.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up